So we're approaching 2 months at this point. I will say that everyone that discusses this is a very part-time position. I won't speak for the commissioners, but I'll speak for at least with what I've been doing. Between the real quote-unquote job and this one, there's been very little time for other things, and I'm also a volunteer firefighter, so you throw that into the mix as well. And I think the dogs have about forgotten what I look like at this point, but thank God, my partner Natalie has not forgotten what I look like. So I think that it's been a good transition. I think it's been a transition not just for me, but also for people in city administration too. Different leadership styles from the last mayor. Maybe different varying levels of engagement based upon whatever the topic may be or the area of concern. And the good surprise is that I found that the city staff is very passionate and they care a great deal. And some of the complaints that you hear from citizens about, services or things that aren't being provided to the level or to the style to which they expect, it's not because there's a lack of desire on the part of the people that we have here in the city. It's certainly not because they're not trying to provide services to the highest level possible. Um, but that transitions me to the biggest negative surprise I think I found is, and perhaps it wasn't a surprise, but having it confirmed, the issue that we face, I think, the largest issue we face is that because of budget constraints and things that have had to occur over the last decade and a half, we have the staff here at the city of Cambridge really stretched very thin. That there are a lot of needs and a lot of responsibilities that fall on fewer shoulders than I think that we would like. And something that we've got to figure out moving forward is how we can bring some people back in house that can ease the workload for those that we already have and bring some varying levels of expertise in other areas as well. The budget process is beginning in earnest right now, um, and it will be adopted and put into place for a fiscal year beginning in July. So we hope to have it adopted by early June. We're reviewing right now some of the needs of the city that have not been addressed over the course of the past few years, and trying to determine ways that we can fund these without having to come back to the well. One thing that I think we're all dedicated in is trying to find ways to raise valuations, to raise uh, what we can do without having to change what we're looking at from a tax perspective. We're already a very highly taxed municipality, um, and we just need to get properties back into the tax rolls at a rate that's commiserate with the draw that they have on the tax rolls. So we've got a number of issues that are facing the city with regard to some funding items that have been, I want to say, left behind, but that have definitely not been addressed to the level that we would have hoped over the last few years. We've had an issue with maintaining officers on our police force because the pay rate is somewhat lower than other agencies in the region, and beyond that, we've lost officers because unfortunately, annual built-in pay raises that were expected weren't able to be provided to the officers. So as we move forward, we're going to try to find ways to bring that closer to where it should be with regard to the pay rates for these officers, and that's going to be a difficult thing. As part of that, we've also introduced an ordinance that's going to provide a tax credit for officers and volunteer firefighters that live in the city of Cambridge. That tax credit's, I think, hugely important for two reasons. One, with officers who reside within the city, you have individuals that are invested beyond their, 8 to 10 hours on the job. They're invested wholly in the safety of the city because they are residents and they are citizens of this city. And it also provides another way to provide what is essentially more money in their pocket. Though it is not a true pay raise, it's a way to provide more spendable money for these individuals because the property tax is going to be abated for them. With regard to the fire department, with a volunteer service, we're saving between 1.4 and 1.6 million dollars annually by not having to have a paid staffing at Rescue Fire Company. The trade-off is with the volunteers, these people give of their time and also have to have a full-time job. So the tax credit, we hope, will give an incentive for volunteers to remain in the fire service and also to remain in the city so that we can have response times to the emergencies occurring here that are going to be reasonable for the citizens. Um, we're also trying to work towards some solutions for some of the housing issues. And so we're working in work sessions right now to learn more about what we can do with those issues in the city. We've got a large number of rental properties in Cambridge, more than really any of our peer communities on the shore. Um, and they're in varying levels of repair and quality. And so it was something that was very important to a number of the people that ran for commissioner and for me as mayor. But we are addressing the issues that are facing the city in a rigorous fashion, but also in a very regimented and informed fashion as well. We want to ensure that what we do isn't a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. It's going to be a solution to a problem that's taken with a lot of thought to all the various outcomes that may occur as a result of the action that we take. There are no upperclassmen on this council. We are all freshmen, but it's a good thing, I think, in this case. We've got people that have been involved in different ways for years, some for decades, that have been civically minded and engaged outside of politics. The best kind of a political figure at this level, I think, is the person that was engaged for years because they care before they ran for office. And we've got that across the board. The CWDI group that was formed about 2.5 years ago, I think is the culmination of what was then 25 and a half, 26 years of discussion about moving forward with this waterfront. And it's made up of a group of players that's, I mean, absolutely the most experienced and also most qualified individuals you could hope for in that kind of position. You've got people like Frank Narr that have been involved for the length of the discussion and project. People like Jeff Powell that have been involved as well since nearly the beginning. And they're very smart and very capable guys that care a great deal about this being the best project possible. You've got other representatives from the city of Cambridge that have a background in real estate law and real estate brokerage that brings a level of expertise and sophistication that perhaps we wouldn't have otherwise had they not come on board. And then you've got folks like the executive director of the Maryland Stadium Authority, who knows what it is to build a big project. The waterfront group, with the hospital moving out to the Route 50 location, that does provide an opportunity that had previously been unavailable. I had a call today with Ken Cazell, who is the executive director of Shore Regional Health, and Ken was saying that they expect to be out of that hospital by the fall. Target date sometime late September through October, and of course that's going to be a bit fluid as things change and as construction continues forward. But they're very hopeful to be there by the first quarter of 22 at the very latest. With the waterfront redevelopment, CWDI was formed as a layer away from government to ensure that political considerations wouldn't damage or prevent the project from coming to fruition and then following through to completion. And but it's always going to need the support of the political bodies that formed it. And I'm very happy that I think that this city council particularly understands the level of expertise that exists with CWDI and the quality of individuals that we have on that board and the efforts they've made. We're going to do what we can to ensure that the project moves forward. And we've got, I think, a council that is sophisticated enough to understand what it doesn't understand. And large scale development is not always the purview of the folks that we have. But we do, of course, also want to ensure that the project continues moving forward. And so any support that we can provide, if we have contacts from potential developers that reach out to the city because they're not aware of the waterfront development group, of course, we'll respond to that. We'll ensure that they're serious, and then we'll forward it along to CWDI. But we're always going to ensure that we work through that mechanism because I think it's appropriate to ensure that it's not viewed as a political decision what occurs there, but it's viewed as a community decision what occurs on that waterfront. Cambridge is a city where race is an important issue, and it has been for decades. We were on the forefront of the civil rights movement. Our impact in the civil rights movement was really outsized for the size of the community that we have. We were receiving national coverage, not always in the best light, unfortunately, along with places like Baltimore and Detroit and New Orleans. And so Cambridge has always been cognizant of that. And it's an issue that continues to exist because, unfortunately, large swaths of our African American community live in poverty. They live in very substandard housing conditions, much more so than the white population does in the city of Cambridge, to be sure. And it's that's a legacy of what occurred in the 19th century and through the 50s and 60s. And it's something that we've got to be cognizant of. Um, I think that this particular city council is much more willing to have the discussion about it. And maybe that's a generational thing as well, because it is a young group. Our oldest council member is 49 years old. Um, so, though we did not live some of these issues, we're much more able to discuss it and have a realistic, conversation about the issues that are existing here. Um, Last night in our city council meeting, which was the meeting on February 22nd, we gave a mayor citation to Chief Yogananda Pittman of the U.S. Capitol Police. Um, she's the first female and the first African American to serve in that role. And we also established, moving forward, the Cambridge Movement Remembrance Week for the last week of Black History Month, so that we can continue and really start moving forward with acknowledging the efforts made by people like Gloria Richardson, the Cambridge Nonviolent Action Committee, and others. Um, I don't know that the last generation's always been willing to have that conversation in this city, and it's one that we've got to have if we're going to move forward as a united community.